What's going on, guys? Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this tutorial on HTML where I'm going to teach you the essentials of HTML. HTML is the foundation of the web, and I've seen lots of videos recently of people saying that they just make money with HTML, and there's a lot more people now getting into tech. And so HTML, it's core, it's the foundation, especially if you're moving into CSS, or if you're doing stuff with React as well as Tailwind CSS. HTML is a must. So this is my first time teaching HTML actually, and on our brand new website we actually have a brand new roadmap in here that focuses mainly on front-end development. So we have courses on Linux, GitHub, and this one is the HTML Essentials. So if you want to gain a certificate for this course for free, go and enroll to this course where you have access to the entire curriculum. And we have CSS as well, which I'm going to post very soon. We have JavaScript, TypeScript, React, and we are launching as well Tailwind CSS very soon. If this is your first time on the channel, go ahead and subscribe, smash the like button, and without further ado, let's get started. Before we start, let me just show you that if you take this course within our platform, we actually have in here a few things. So one, we have the course slides, so you can have access to the slides in here. And the other one is, so every single section you can go and then basically complete the sections, and then you basically get a certificate towards the end. We also have quizzes, so end of each section we have quizzes in here to help you solidify the content that you learn. And also towards the end in here, we have 4 exercises. So we have exercise 1, 2, 3, where at the end you learn how to build websites, including, so I think, so you'll build your own portfolio as well. And basically everything that you learn within these sections in here, we just want to make sure that you actually learn by doing and not just by watching the course. All right, without further ado, let's get started. Let's begin our journey in terms of learning exactly what is HTML. HTML was written by Berners-Lee in 1993. This was the very first version, and it stands for Hypertext Markup Language, which is a language used to create and design the structure of a web page. So this is very important because it's the building block of web development, allowing developers to organize and present content on the internet. The primary purpose of HTML is to structure the content of a web page. It provides a set of predefined elements that describe the different parts of a document, such as headings, paragraphs, lists, and tables. So you'll see how this will come together, but HTML is a markup language and not a programming language. So bear that in mind. All right. So also we have something called hypertext, and these are basically links. So hyperlinks in here, or simply links, are connections between web pages, allowing users to navigate between different pieces of content. HTML has gone through several versions. HTML5 is the latest and mostly widely used, and each version includes new features and improvements, ensuring the language evolves to meet the changing needs of web development. HTML is the backbone used to create structure and link documents, and it serves as the foundation for web pages, working in conjunction with other technologies such as CSS for styling and JavaScript for interactivity. So you'll cover both of these later, but let's just focus on HTML. Next, let me show you the structure of a HTML page. All right, now let's learn about the structure of HTML. So to begin with, so this right here is a simple web page that says hello world, and I'm going to cover everything that you see in here. So let's begin with the doc type, or the declaration. So this is not an HTML tag, but it's an information to the browser about what document type to expect. In our case, HTML. Then moving on, we have the HTML root element. So this right here is a tag, and I'll come back to these tags, how they work, in a second. But you have the root element of an HTML page, and it's like this. So basically you have the less sign, HTML, greater sign, and then you also have the exact same thing, but you can see that here it has a less sign and then /. So this is the closing tag. Then inside of the root tag, you have the head. So the head in here contains metadata about the HTML document. And inside we have, let's just cover the meta. So meta defines metadata about an HTML document. So for example, in here we have the char set, and this sets the character encoding to UTF-8, which supports almost all characters and symbols globally. We also have in here meta name viewport, and then content with, device with, initial scale 1. And this tells the browser how to control pages, dimensions, and scaling on different devices. So in here, with device width makes the page width match the device screen width, and initial scale in here sets the initial zoom level to 100%. So don't worry too much about this. So this is actually metadata, and it's not included within the actual web page. You'll see this in a second. And for example, if you are doing stuff with search engine optimization or SEO, you'd include everything within the head tag. So basically metadata about the page itself. Cool. Then we have the title. So this is the title of the HTML document displayed in the browser's title bar or tab. And next we have the body. So this is pretty much the most important tag in here, and it contains the content of the HTML document. All right. And inside you can see here we have the p tag or the paragraph, which is used for defining paragraphs. So this is it. Awesome. Let's go ahead and create our very first HTML page. In order for us to create our very first HTML, we need to download a text editor that allows us to do so. So for this course, we're going to use Visual Studio Code, which is the most popular text editor for web development. So navigate to code.visualstudiocode.com, and in here you can download Visual Studio for your operating system. So here, if I say download, and it knows that I'm on Mac OS, so just download and then save it on the desktop. All right, perfect. So in here, now let me extract VS Code. So in here, this is my desktop, and I'm going to unzip. There we go. And if I delete this zip file, this is Visual Studio Code. Now I'm going to click on it, and voila, this is Visual Studio Code. So if it doesn't come up with a dark theme, so what you can do is go to settings, and then here you can say themes, and then click on color theme, and then here you could choose. So I think it's because I already had the dark one, but if you want the white one, which I don't recommend, so I think this is the default, you could use this one, but I'm gonna use the dark theme, and I'll also recommend you to use dark theme so that it doesn't damage your eyes. So here, let's just go back, click on the clog in here, and then go to themes, color theme, and then choose dark Visual Studio, this one here, and you can play around and choose the one that you like. And this is it. All right, perfect. Now that we have Visual Studio Code, we can create our very first HTML page. All right, so now let's go ahead and create our very first HTML page. So click on new file, and then here, just use text file in here. There we go. And I'm going to type $, and then exclamation mark, and then doc, and then type. So all caps actually. So doc type, and this is going to be HTML. So this tells the browser that this is an HTML file. And then here we can say HTML, just like this. And you can see that we actually get auto-completion with Visual Studio Code, which is nice. So if I show you, so in here, see if I type the $, and then HTML, and then close this with the greater sign, you can see that it completes the statement for me. So this is the opening tag, and this is the closing tag. Don't worry too much about this, all right? Now, inside, remember, we said that we have the head in here. And within the head tag, we can define a few things. So let's just say title. And then the title for this will be hello. And inside of the HTML tag. So this is the root. We have the head tag. So here I want to press enter, and we can specify some metadata if we want to, but we don't have to at the moment. So what I want to specify is the body. So I'm going to say body. There we go. And then close it. And you can see that we get auto completion there. Press enter. And inside of the body, let's have one p tag. So let's sign p and then close this. And then I'm going to say hello, just like that. And this is it. So this is our very first HTML page. All right, now what I'm going to do is create a new folder. And I want to name this folder as HTML. And we're going to save this file now. All right, so you can press Command S or Control S if you're on Windows, or you can go to File in here and then Save. And you can see the keyboard shortcut right here. And now I'm going to save this under the HTML folder that I've just created. So for the file name in here, we're going to name this as my-first and then page. And then make sure that this is .html. So the same file extension that you have, for example, for dot and then docs for Word documents, or CSV, or any programming language. For Java is dot and then class, for example. For Python is .py. For HTML, the file extension is .html and then save. All right, perfect. This is your very first HTML page. Now let's navigate into the HTML folder. And in here, you can see that we have my first and then page.html. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this with any web browser. For this course, we're going to use Google Chrome. So just make sure that you have Google Chrome installed and right click and then open with. So I've got a bunch of different web browsers. So here I do have Google Chrome. So just click on it, or you can just click this file. So if I click on it, and there you have it. So this is your very first HTML page, or your first web page, which simply says hello. And the title of it in here also is hello. Have a look, the title in here. So if I go back and in here, so if I show you, so remember, so let me just close this. So in here, remember, we said hello. So this is the page title. So if I say, for example, Amigoscode, and then save this, and then go back, and if I refresh the page, you can see that we have Amigoscode in here, but the content of it still hello. So if I go back, and in here for the content, I'm going to say hello and then world. Save this, go back, and then if I reload the page, you can see that we have hello and then world. Perfect. This is pretty much it. If you have any questions, drop me a message. Otherwise, catch me on the next one. What I want to talk to you in this video is how do you access your web pages. So you saw that we could just go to the file in here, open the folder, and then this is the file. And then here you could just double click, and then we have this. But if you look at the web address, so this is not www.amigoscode.com, for example, www.amigoscode.com, right? So if I do this, this takes me to the Amigoscode website. But in our case, if I go back, have a look, this is a file. And this right here is the location of the file. So file column // and then / is the folder, so root, and then users, Amigoscode, desktop, HTML, and then the name of the file, which is my-first-page.html. So if I also change this to, let's say, my-first.html, you can see that there's no file that we can access. So if I go back in here and just put the dash and then page.html, this is how you access. Now, obviously, when you deploy this to a real server, and then you can map this to your domain. So maybe jamila.com or johntech.com, but we're not there yet. So everything that we're going to do is going to be locally. And for you, this is how you access your HTML documents. All right, if you have any questions, drop me a message. Otherwise, catch me on the next one. All right, so when working with Chrome or any other web browser, we have something called the inspector tools. So here, what I want you to do is within Chrome, right click and then click on inspect. So when you do this, you get access to the inspector tool. Now this sometimes it might be, so if I close this, so this sometimes it might be in here, right at the bottom. So let me just close this as well. So it might be right at the bottom, but what I've done in my case is, and in fact, if I press Control plus, so it's bigger. So in my case, in here, I can click on these three dots and then dock side and then on the right side. So this is what I prefer. So in here, you can see that this allows us to have access to a bunch of things. So one is the element. So it means that we can inspect any HTML page. So you can see, I can see the exact HTML code that we produce. So have a look, HTML, and then inside of the head tag, we have Amigoscode, and then inside of the body, we have hello world. And if you want, you can click on it or double click and then say hello and then bar, for example, and you can see that you can modify the content of any web page. But obviously this is not permanent. So if I refresh the page, you can see that this goes back to hello world. The other thing that we have here is console. So this allows us to write some JavaScript code. So if you say console.log, or better, let's just say alert. So alert and then hello, and then just make sure you have double quotes. There we go. So I'm missing an O here. So alert and then open parentheses, double quotes, type hello, and then double quotes, close parentheses, press enter. You can see that we have hello. So this is an alert box. So this is JavaScript, which we're not going to touch in this course. And we have a bunch of other things in here that you can have a look. But for now, all you need to know is about the elements tab in here. So this is cool because if you want to inspect any HTML document, so say that we go to, so in here, google.com. So in here, if you want to analyze the HTML code behind this page, right click, inspect, and then have a look. We have HTML. So have a look. Doc type, you've learned about this. So HTML. And then here we have the head tag, a bunch of meta in here. So char set, origin, and then images, and then styling in here. So script as well, which you'll see later. And then have a look. We have the body. So here, so this is what's inside of the body. So if you look at, so here, we can actually right click on this button and then go to inspect. And this takes us straight into this element in here, right? So here, this is an input and you can see the value is Google search. So here, I'm going to change this to Amigos search, for example, press enter. And you can see that if I zoom in on the web page, so on the web page in here, have a look, we changed this from Google search to Amigos search. So if you want to inspect any web page and see their HTML code, you can. So if I go to, let's just go to amigoscode.com, and then here I'm going to right click, inspect, and then you can see all the elements. So here, say that I want to see this element. So just put your mouse in here, right click, inspect, and it takes me straight into this. Let me just close this. And you can see that this is a span with a class text accent and then developers. So maybe I want devs. And you can see that now I temporarily changed my web page. But you can see that this contains a bunch of code in here. And if you want to learn how I've put this page together, you can inspect the page. So this is about the inspector tools, which is really powerful. And if you want to inspect how a page is constructed, this is how to do it. All right, let me close this for now, and I'm going to leave it here. So one thing that I want to talk to you about is the indentation of an HTML page. So let me actually put this full screen, just like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in. So I'm going to press Command plus. There we go. And one thing that I want you to notice is the following. So in here, have a look, we have, so basically we have dog type and then HTML and then head and whatnot. So you'll see that if I, for example, let's just say here, I'm going to delete this and then I'm going to press enter. So you see when I press enter, the cursor comes here. And if I say in here body, just like this, press enter, you can see that if I say P again, enter, what you'll notice is that Visual Studio Code is indenting our code for us. And what this means, you can see that under the head tag, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. Or, so if I delete in here, I'm going to press tab, there's a tab for it. So this allows our code to be organized. So you can see that for HTML, everything under it has exactly one tab. For head, everything under it, one tab, so on and so forth. So here, body, everything under it is spaced out by one tab. So here, if I create another P tag, for example, so P tag, you can see that it is under it, right? So under body. So this keeps our code organized. Now, you can see for me, I do have in here colors. So I have an extension in here called rainbow brackets that allows me to visualize this even better. So if I go to, so in here, click on extensions and then search for rainbow. So rainbow, so or indent rainbow. So you can see that it is installed. So if I disable for now, go back to my first page HTML, and I think I need to restart the extensions. There we go. Click on it. Yes, there we go. So you can see that now I don't have any color coding. All right. So I love this extension because it allows me to see how things are indented. So let me just go back in here. So Command Z. So what we had was hello world, right? So if I install the extension again, let me just go back and then here extensions and then search for rainbow and then install this one, indent rainbow, 10 million downloads. So click on it and then just say install. For me, it's already installed. I'm going to enable and then I can close this and you can see that now it is colored. So say that I want to put this word. So in here, I want to press enter. You can see that now this is a different color. Paste it and you can see that things are indented. Cool. So let me go back and leave this under the same line. So it doesn't really make a difference, but it's something that I want to talk to you because obviously it's very important that you indent your HTML code. Now, one thing here, which is very important is, so if I basically, let's say I mess this up and you can see that this becomes red, this also becomes red. And let's just say that we have indentation like this, right? So this is completely messed up and you have a bunch of HTML. Now, obviously I can go and fix this manually or go to view and then command palette and then here say format. So just say format document and then this will tell you, right? So there are multiple formatters, just configure and then just use HTML language in here. So if you have Prettier, just use Prettier. If you have Dino, so I think I've installed this one before, but just use HTML. You should have HTML by default. There we go. And you can see that this takes care of everything for us. Let me show you once more. So say that we have something like this. There we go. And then maybe we have, let's just say in here, a div, and inside we have another div, and inside we have a p tag. There we go. So this is not really valid formatting. So what we could do is go to view and then command palette. And then here you could say format document or format with, and then choose HTML. And you can see that it fixes the formatting for us. So very, very crucial moving forward. All right. So for now, I'll see you in the next one. So the other thing that I want to show you is one really nice extension that allows us to preview our web page right within VS Code. So instead of opening a web browser and then viewing our code that way, what we can do is, so if you navigate to extensions in here, click on extensions, and then here I'm going to remove rainbow, and then search for HTML and then preview. So this will come up with few extensions, but the one that I want you to install is this one here, Live Preview by Microsoft. Click on it and then install. There we go. And if I close this, now what we have, so if I click on the extension tab once more to hide that, now what we have is this icon in here. So show preview. I'm going to click on it and check this out. So what we have is a preview of our web page. So let me just close this, and the exact same thing that you saw within Google Chrome, it's now right within Visual Studio Code. So this actually spins up a web server, and you can see HTTP and then colon / localhost and then the port 3000 and then users Amigoscode desktop HTML my first page. So you've seen this before. So it means that, so in here, if I make this smaller, so command and then minus, so you see everything. So if I say hello world and then full, and you can see that it updates automatically. So if I delete this, you can see that it updates automatically. So if I in here keep hello world, put smiley face, and then maybe I want to have in here another tag. So just press $, type H1 in here, and you can see that it updates. So if I say hello, for example, so this is another tag that you are going to learn later, but you can see that it's slightly different than a P tag. So this is heading and this is paragraph. All right, so let me see if I can zoom in here. No, I cannot zoom in on the page itself, but this is quite good. All right, so if you want to stop this server in here, click on the port, so port 3000, and then you can stop server in here, show preview on external browser if you want, show debug, so on and so forth. But for me, basically, I'm going to leave it running. And if I close this, if you want to access again, just click on the button in here, and you can see that it opens the exact same preview. So this is quite good because obviously we can keep everything under VS Code and not having to switch between web browsers. All right, that's all for now. I'll see you on the next one. One last thing that I want to cover is, you saw that before when we created this very first HTML page. I basically, so if I delete all of this in here and I manually typed $, and then underscore doc type, there we go, and then HTML, and now I need to say HTML and then close, and then I need to say title, so on and so forth. So what we are going to do in this course, we're not going to type every single command, and instead in here, if you type $! in here, you can see that you have the Emmet abbreviation. So if you choose the second one in here, it gives you doc type straight away. If you in here, if you say $! and then just choose the first one, check this out. It gives you a blank canvas for an HTML page, which is kind of nice. So here you can go and then change a few things. So if you want to change the content, if you want to change the title, here you can say my first page, and then within the body, you could basically start writing HTML. So this is one way. So here, another way that you could do this is if you type HTML, so you have all of these abbreviations. So this is HTML, there we go. And the other one is HTML5. So this will give you the exact same thing as before. Okay. So in here, if I change this to my first and then page. So what I want to show you is within the body itself. Now, instead of saying $, and then P, and then you can see that we have the opening and closing tag, I could just in here, I could just say P, for example. And now I can choose any of these auto completions. So here P is for a P tag. There we go. If I want an H1, H1, there we go. If I want, for example, an image, IMG, there we go. And you can see that it gives me the image as well as the attributes associated with the particular tag, which is an image in this case, right? If you want iframe, for example, which we'll cover later, you can see that we have an iframe. If you want a video, just like this, and many of other tags which are available to us. So here we said P, and then I can say hello and then world. There we go. And before that, if you want an H1, just type H1. There we go. And then my site, for example. Save this. And there we go. So we're going to use auto-completion quite a lot in this course. But as you see, HTML, there's not many tags that you should know. And I'll give a cheat sheet that you can have for reference. But this is how you're going to work with HTML most of the time. So you don't have to memorize none of this. All right, so none of this. If I want meta, for example, just type meta in here, and you can see that we have different types. All right, so if I say meta, and then this one, you can see that we have the attribute for this. If I want another one, I could just say meta. But also one thing which I forgot to mention is if you press Control space in here, this will give you auto completion. So here, if I say less sign and then Control space or escape and then Control space, you can see that I do get auto completion in here. You can see that I do get auto completion in here. All right. So this is pretty much it. I'll see you on the next one. Before we move on to the next chapter, what I want to do is I want to make sure that we have the correct setup. So in here, you can see that we only have one file, but as we go through this course, I'm going to be creating lots of files. So what I want to do is you see that we have this folder right here called HTML. So what we're going to do is let's just close everything that we have in here. And so I'm going to close this. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag this folder inside of VS Code. Voila. Now this basically opens the folder, but now we have access to all the files that we create inside of this folder. So here we have my first page. And if I go and create, let's say 2.html, you can see that we have the file in here. And if I open the Explorer, we have the file in here, which is empty. So you can create subfolders and everything. So I'll basically keep all the examples in here so that you can have access to it. So here, let me just close this and I'm going to delete this file. So right click, and how do I delete? I think it's just pressing the delete tab. And then here, delete, move to trash. There we go. And if I basically close this, so this is how we access the Explorer right here, and you can see all the files in here. So if I close that and then put this full screen, and I think our file was, let's just say hello, and then this was, I think it was a p tag before, so p tag my first page. It doesn't really matter. All right, so moving forward, so for all the other examples, what I'll do is I will create a brand new file and then we'll access that file instead of reusing this file in here. Cool. This is pretty much it. And next, let's go ahead and learn about HTML tags. In this section, let's learn about HTML tags. So tags are elements used to structure and define the content within the HTML page or document. Each tag consists of a pair of angle brackets. So you have the angle brackets like this. So this is the less sign and greater sign, and it's used to mark the beginning. So this one is used for the beginning, and we also have the end. So the end is the exact same tag, but with a / before the element name. And here's a breakdown. So we have the opening tag. So let's say that this is the opening tag and the tag name is tag name. Then we have the closing tag. So it's the exact same thing. So less sign and then / tag name and then close. And then we have the content. The content is the actual data, the actual text. So you saw with the paragraph. So this is how we've done it before. So we have less sign, p, close, and then this is the data. This could be anything. And then the closing part in here. All right, so we have common tags. So we have the HTML tag, we have the head tag, title, body, h1 to h6, p, anchor tags, images, ul for an ordered list, ordered lists, the list item itself, div for division, and we also have span, tables, tr, td, form, br, hr, and a bunch of others. So these are just few examples, but there are many other tags, and each serving a specific purpose in defining the structure and content of your web page. So to give an example here, let me just close this and then open. And I'm going to duplicate this, Command C, Command V. And then here, I'm going to rename this to tags.html and then close this. And essentially, so in here, all these tags, basically, they have to be inside of the body. So the body contains the main content of the web page. If I, for example, say, let's just use H. So this is the heading. So H1, press enter. You can see that this in here is the opening and this is the closing tag. So if I zoom in so you can see better, so opening and then closing, and inside we have the data. So here, if I say heading, for example, and then save this, Command S, and then we can preview this, and you can see that we have the heading in here. Close this. The same for the title in here. You can see that we have title, opening, closing, and then we have the data. If you look at the HTML tag, so this is the opening tag, and we'll talk about attributes in a second. So opening tag, closing tag, and anything within is the data. So the data is the head tag in here. So this is the data and the body as well. So I can actually collapse this so you can see everything. Have a look. So within the HTML tag, the data is these two other tags, head and then, oops, and then the body, right? So if I put my mouse in here, you can actually read what this tag does. So this is the documentation for it. This is it. And it's not the case for the doc type. So remember, this is not an HTML tag, but it's just for the browser to understand the document type, which is HTML. All right, so for tags, you have opening, closing, and then within you have the data. Cool. Next, let me talk to you about attributes. Now that you know what tags are, we also have tag attributes. So these in here, they provide additional information about an HTML element and are always including in the opening tag. They enhance the functionality or provide additional details about the element affecting its behavior or appearance. Here's an example with an image, for example. So this is the image tag. So you basically say $img, and then this right here is the attribute. So src equals, and this is the data that we pass, and then alt equals, and then here this is the text in case the image does not load. All right, cool. We also have common tag attributes. So in here we have class, which is used to assign one or more classes to an element, ID, src, href, alt. So this is basically used for hyperlinks in here, and I'll show you in a second. And then we also have alt, describes the content of an image for accessibility purposes. And there are others, but most of the times you're going to be using these ones the most. Cool. Let me show you an example. Right. So right within Visual Studio Code or VS Code, let me just expand these. So within the heading in here, if I was to create an A tag, so in here, A, just say A, and then close this. And then inside we can have a few things. We can have the href. So here I can say www.amigoscode.com, and then if I say visit my site, so let me just put this on a new line like so. So here we need to add http, so http:// and then www.amigoscode.com. If I save this and if we preview this, you can see that we have heading and then visit my site. You can see right at the bottom, we have the target, which is the Amigoscode website. And this right here, so this is an anchor tag, which means a link, right? So we said that whenever we click on this, just navigate to another web page, which is amigoscode.com. So if I click on it, I don't think that we can navigate to another web page from the extension that we just installed. So open up Chrome. So let me just close this. And then in here before we had the first page, but for us, we renamed actually we have a new file called tags, and then press enter. And you can see that we have heading and then visit my site. So if I click on this, have a look, we navigate to amigoscode.com. Now let me give yet another attribute to this. So in here, I'm going to give it another attribute. I'm going to say target and then underscore and then blank. So what this will do is the following. So if I save this, go back, and if I go back in here to my page, reload. So now you can see that before it just replaced this exact same page with my site, amigoscode.com. But now if I click on it, what it's going to do is open a brand new tab. So you can see that now I do have access to the original page. So you can see the effect of attributes. This is for A tags, but you have for images, and you can provide ID as well, which you will see. But this is the gist of attributes. If you have any questions, drop me a message. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next one. Right, now let me go ahead and talk to you about tags, and you'll see their usages. So if I expand this in here, and then let's create a new file. I'm going to say heading.html, and here I'm going to hide this, and then type colon, press enter, or sorry, exclamation mark, and then press enter. And then here I'm going to say headings. And basically headings allows us to create heading text. Similarly, with a Word document, you have the title, and then you have subtitles, and then you have the paragraphs. You can actually achieve the same thing with HTML. So here, if I say H and then 1, press enter. So this is the H1 tag. So if I say, for example, Jamila, and then save this, let's preview, and you can see that we have Jamila in here. So it's actually bold and big, and we can have also H2. So this goes all the way to H6, if I'm not mistaken. So here I'm going to say H, and you can see that we have H1 to H6. So if I say H2, and I'm going to leave Jamila as well, so you can compare, have a look. So this one is a bit smaller, and let's duplicate this. So I'm going to take this line, or I think I could just press Option or Shift and then Option, and then I can duplicate a couple of times, and then this will be H3. And you can see the beauty is if I change here, it also changes on this side. H4, H5, and then H, and then 6. So this is 5 actually. So 5, there we go, and H6. So you can basically compare. And let me just put a paragraph in here. So P, so you've learned about this, Jamila. All right, so this is the difference between H1s all the way to H6. So this is bigger and then smaller, and then it just keeps on decreasing in size, right? So when you have a web page and you have, for example, a blog, right, you want to use the appropriate headings to define the structure of your page, right? So maybe H1 for titles. So maybe a blog, how to learn, and then HTML. And then you have the subheading, which is H2, for example, HTML in 10 minutes, for example, or the subheading basically. And then you have the blog itself, which is using a bunch of paragraphs. All right, I'm gonna leave it here, but let me actually revert this and just keep Jamila, so you know the differences between H1 and H6. All right, so for now, I'll see you in the next one. All right, so you've seen the P tag, but let me go over and again just talk about the P tag, and we'll have a much more structured HTML page in a second. But you've learned about H1, H2, all the way to H6. So here, let's say that this will be, so let me just put this slightly smaller. So here I'm going to say HTML course, and then learn the backbone of web and then development. All right, so this is the subtitle, and then H1 really, it just allows us to define text, and you've seen this, right? So this is not really like previewing because I need to open this file. So I've just copied, and I didn't show you actually. I'm creating these files in here, but I don't have to show you every single time because you already know. So if I basically preview this, and you can see that now we have HTML course, learn the backbone of web development. So now here, if I want to have some text, so here I could say P, so that's the P tag. And then I think I could just say lorem or lorem. And then this will give me random text. Just say L-O and then E-R-M, just press enter. And then here you have random text. So I can keep on saying here P, or actually, sorry, yeah, P. There we go. And then lorem. And I think with lorem, we can say lorem and then 50, and then it gives you like 50 characters. But this is fine. And you can see that here we are creating a blog about HTML. So you can see that the P tag or the paragraph is mainly for text. All right. So you see we have the H5 in here, which is used for the title, subtitle in here, and then we have the article itself. If you look at any blog, this is how it's been done. All right. Make sure to use the correct tags when creating blogs, because for SEO purposes, so search engine optimization, Google looks at how structured is your web page. And if you have a poor structured web page, for example, you're using H1 instead of, so maybe here you are using another H1, right? So for the text itself, this is no good. All right. Usually just have one H1, which is a title, and then a bunch of subheadings, and then the actual text itself. Cool. So this is pretty much P tags, and you should know by now what they are, but I felt like I had to include them straight after H tags. So for now, I'll see you in the next one. Now let's talk about lists in HTML. So lists are much like bullet points. If you've written a document, for example, you've used lists or bullet points, and you can have, the dots and then text, or you can have ordered bullet points. This allows you to get the exact same result. So for lists is as follows. So the lists actually, they are used within another tag called the OL or L or UL, and I'll show you the difference in a second. So here I'm going to create an H1. So H1, I'm going to say ordered and then lists. So here within the OL, if I save this and then show you, so this gives me nothing. All right. So what we need to do is we need to use this in conjunction with the L. So LI, with the list itself. So here, if I say, for example, Jamila, and now I have a second one, Alex, and then here, let's just say Tommy, for example, or Tommy with 2 M's. And you can see that how this gives you 1, 2, 3. So even though I'm not specifying 1, 2, 3 in here. So this is ordered lists. Now, if you want an ordered list, so let me just duplicate this. So copy everything and then paste. And then here I'm going to say and then ordered. So ordered lists. And instead of OL, you just say UL. So an ordered list. This is ordered list. And you can see the difference in here. So here you have the bullet points. So quite simple, but one that you use all the time. So for now, I'll see you in the next one. Now let's learn about links, which allows you to navigate between different web pages. So in here, you've seen actually we use the A tag, and this is how you create a link. So you saw that we have amigoscode.com, for example, and inside we have to pass a couple of attributes. So here I can say href, and this is where, so HTTPS or HTTP. So this is the protocol / amigoscode.com, and we can have another link in here. So let's just say in here A, and we say age and then ref, and then here let's say lists.html. So this is the file that we have right within the HTML folder, right? So I'm keeping track of all of the files that we are creating, and here I'm going to say lists example. All right, and then here for this link I want to say target, and I want to open a blank new page. So if I zoom out so you can see everything and then save this. Now if we preview this, you can see that we have links in here. So we have two links. So amigoscode.com and then lists example. So if I click on this one, it doesn't really work. So links does not work with this plugin. So let's just open up Chrome, and in here we have links.html. There we go. If I zoom in, so you can see that we have two links, lists example, as well as amigoscode.com. If I click on this one, you can see that this opens a new tab, and it takes us to the ordered lists as well as an ordered lists example that I've given you. And it opens a new tag because of the target attribute. If I go back to links in here, if I open up amigoscode.com, this will not open a new tab and will go straight into the Amigoscode website. And there you have it. This is how you work with links. So for now, I'll see you in the next one. In this video, let's learn about HTML buttons. So if you went to any website, you've seen that sometimes you have a button, whether it's to save a form or submit the form actually, or when you click on the button, it does something. So if you want to have a button, it's quite straightforward. So I could just say button in here, and I basically have all of these templates that I can use. So if I use the first one, you can see that this is a normal button. If I use the second one, so button B, you can see that this is a button and the type is button. And this is because a button sometimes can be used to submit a form, right? So here I just want a normal button, and I want to say click me. We can also have a button. So if I say button, and then here you can see that we have a disabled button in here, disabled, or let me just say click me in here. And if I save this, if we preview this, you should see that we have an empty button in here that has nothing, one that says click me in here, and another one which is disabled, so you cannot even click the button. So this is it. This actually is a HTML button. There's no styling, so if you want to style, you have to use CSS. And to use CSS, let me quickly show you. So we haven't learned much about CSS, but here let's say that for the first button you want to say style. So this is another property, and then I can say background color, and then let's just say red, for example, and you can see that the color has changed. So let me just put this smaller again. Actually, let me just put this on a new line like this, all the attributes, there we go, and then there we go. So now I can increase the font. You can see that we just use the style, and this is one way of many ways of styling a button. But don't worry, we haven't learned much about CSS. This course is more on HTML. The other way that we can create buttons are as follows. So you can have an input, so input, and for this input, so I could just say input actually, and you can see that we have a button. Have a look. So input and then button. So here I have type equals to button, and I can just say click me again, and we have a button. Now this button in here is slightly different because it's mainly to be used within forms, and it doesn't have a closing tag. So this actually is a self-closing tag because the data that goes inside of the tag itself, it's through a property like this one in here, whereas the data that goes inside of this button in here is not through a property but within the tag itself in here. So you have the opening and then the closing tag. All right, this is it. And if you want to attach, for example, a bit of JavaScript, so when you click to do something, so maybe when you click, you want to change the background color to green, for example. So let's just try and do this quickly. So here, let's just use, so I'm on a new line in here. So on a new line like this, we can say on and then click. And on click in here, we want to invoke change color. So this is the function. All right, so let's define this function. And don't you worry too much about this because we haven't covered JavaScript. So within the head tag, have the script. So script tag like this. And I'm going to have a function. So function. And the name of the function is change color. So just take that and then have the parentheses like so, open and close brackets. Now in here we can say document dot get and then element by ID, and the ID is going to be B3, and we need to specify the ID because obviously we have various elements in here. So the ID of this will be ID. So this is a property, and then I'm going to say B3. So this is button 3. All right, so now what I want to do. So here I want to say dot and then style, and we want to change the dot and then background and then color. And here equals to, and we can say green, for example. There we go. So you can grab all of this from under the description of this video. And as I said, don't you worry too much about this because we haven't covered JavaScript nor CSS. But now if I click on this button, you can see that it changed to red. But what I wanted to do was to change this one actually. So it means I will need to change the ID. So the ID should be on, so not on this one. Let's just put it on this one, on the disabled one. There we go. So like this, and then indent this with tab so things are organized. New line in here, new line. If I now save, if I click on this button, and you can see that this one now is green. All right, this is pretty much buttons in HTML. Obviously there's way more to it in terms of, so if I say in here button, you can see that we have reset, we have disabled, which you've seen. What is this? D. Oh yeah, that's disabled. That's just an alias. But they're quite simple, but very powerful. So for now, I'll see you in the next one. In this video, let's go ahead and learn about HTML tables. To work with tables is quite straightforward. We need to use the table tag. And within table, we have table rows, headings, and the data itself. So here we need to say row. So we first need a row. So TR, just like this. And within a row, we have the headings. So TH, press enter. And here, let me just say ID. And I'm going to duplicate this a few times. And here, I'm going to say name and then age. All right. So if I preview this, this is our table. So these are the headers. Now I want the data itself. So maybe 2 people. Let's in here say another row. So TR. So TR, and now I can provide the TD for data. So here I want 1, for example, duplicate this, and I want to have James, let's say, duplicate this, and then age 29. Let's take this exact same thing in here, and then paste. This will be 2, and then this will be Anna, and then Anna, she's, I don't know, 44, for example. And you can see that this is our table. Now, at the moment, this table in here is not nice, right? So it doesn't look like a proper table, but it is a table. So what we can do is we can add some styling around. If you want to style this table, and this is using CSS, and we haven't covered CSS, so don't you worry too much about this. So here, under the head tag, I'm going to create style. There we go. And within this style tag, I'm going to target the table, comma, as well as the TH, so T headers, comma, as well as the data, TD. And inside, I want to change the border to be 1 pixel, and then solid, and you can see that it's already taking shape. If you want to change the color, maybe red, you say red. If you want blue, for example, you just say blue, and then end this with semicolon. You can see how beautiful it is. Now for the table also, if I want the table to take 100% of the width, I can just say table in here, and we want to say width. So width 100%. So 100%, and you can see that now it looks like a proper table. All right, so obviously there's a lot more that you can do, but don't worry too much about this. This is CSS, and you can grab all of this and then paste it. So we'll cover CSS later, but the gist really is tables. So you have rows, and for the first row is the heading, and you could put your mouse in here and it tells you. So the element represents a header, And then we have rows again with the data. So TD represents data in a cell. All right, if you have any questions on tables, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next one. In this video, let's learn about HTML images. So how do we display images? So what I want to do here is let's create a brand new file. I'm going to say images.html, and I'm going to close this as well as this and this as well. And then I'm going to say HTML. There we go. And I'm going to leave everything as is, change the title to images, and then H1 and then images. All right, so to display images is quite straightforward. We have to use the img tag. So here, just say img, press enter, and we have two things. We have the source as well as alt. This right here is an attribute that defines the alternative text description of an image. So browsers do not always display the image referenced by the element. So if that's the case, then what do you want to display instead? So here, let me just say HTML. Now, for the source in here, this is the location of the image. So if you have an image which is locally stored within your file system, then you can point to it. So let's go to Google and go to images in here and then search for HTML. Right click on this image. And then what we're going to do is copy image address. Go back and in here, paste the image address. So you can see that this is a very long link, which it's okay to be honest. And the image is a base64 encoded image, which is fine. So save that and then preview. And you can see that we have the image right here. Let's go back. And in here, let's go to pixels. So I'm going to say pixels in here and click on the first link. And then here, just say coding HTML, for example, and literally just take any picture that you see in here. So let's just take, for example, I don't know, this one, and let's download and save it within the HTML folder. So here I'm going to say man and then working. All right, I want to save this. And you can see that this is a JPEG.jpg. So if I go back and in here, let's add the image straight after the HTML image. So here I want to say img, and you can see that the image is right here. So man working. So if I click on it, this is the image. So let me just close this, and then the source will be man working.jpg. And the alt in here, I'm going to say man working, for example. Perfect. So you can see that we have the image. So obviously it's quite big and we can fix this. So in here, what I'm going to do is for this image, so on a new line, just like this, I'm going to say width, and then we can give a width of in here. Let's just say 100, for example. And you can see that now it's much smaller. So let's just say 200. And there we go. Now, obviously, you can adjust this according to your liking. So if I say 300, for example, slightly bigger, but you can see that this is how we work with images. So let's say that this image could not be loaded. So if I say S, you can see that the alt text is man and then working in here. But obviously, you'd have a better description in here, but this is what happens to this alt text in here. Perfect. So if I undo that, and this is pretty much the gist of images. Obviously, you can style your images, and also if you don't want to specify the width like this, you can do it through CSS. But if you look at the other attributes, so you can say hide, you can say height, you can also say hidden, for example, so the image is gone, and there's plenty of others in here. For us, let's just keep width because it auto calculates the height. So if I was to say height, for example, to, I don't know, 50, you can see that basically the image is quite blurry and it lost a lot of quality. Let me just keep at 300 and we're good to go. Now, this value in here is actually pixels. So I didn't mention, but 300 and then pixels. And this is how you work with images. The other thing also actually, so you see that this is actually an image itself. So this icon, but sometimes it can actually refer to images on a particular website. So if I show you in here, let's go to amigoscode.com. So let's go to amigoscode.com, and then let's go to, I don't know, courses, and let's find the HTML course, or any course, to be honest, Linux, for example. And then here, I'm going to right click, inspect, and I want to grab the image. All right, so the image is this one. So this is the image. And if I click on it, you can see that we have the source. So just take this. So I just put my mouse in here and I have the source. Oops, the source. And then if I go back, so here, let's just have yet another image. So img, and then paste that. And you can see the source is https amigoscode.com, assets, thumbnails, and then Linux fundamentals. And here I would say Linux fundamentals cover, for example, and width, let's just say 200. There we go. So you can see, or let's just make it bigger, 400. There we go. And you can see that we have an image. So this is actually pointing to my website, whereas this one, so it's slightly different. So this one is a base64 image, and this is the actual image itself. So this long text that you see here is the actual image. All right. So this is pretty much it on images. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next one. In this video, let's talk about the division tag, or simply div, and it allows us to group HTML elements or tags together. So let's say that we have a paragraph, and then here I'm going to say lorem, and then say that we have another paragraph in here, so p, and then I'm going to say lorem. There we go. So if I show you what we have, so in here we have two divisions. Now say that I want to increase the font of this paragraph or this one, or maybe, in fact, let's just create another one. So let's just say P in here and then lorem. There we go. So we have three paragraphs. So if I show you, so in here, say that we want to group this and this paragraph together, and then maybe give it a pink background or an orange background, and this one maybe you want to give it a different color. So divisions or divs allows us to group these elements together. So it's quite simple. You just say div, and now you can take whatever elements that you have and put it inside, just like this. So what I want to do, in fact, let me just say P in here. I'm going to say content, and then I'm going to duplicate, and then just keep it simple. There we go. So you can see everything easily. Now let's have another div, and I'm going to say P and then content. Perfect. So if I save this and then preview, nothing will change. But the cool thing now is that, say that we want to apply a background to this division. So we could just say style, and then I could say background color, and then you could choose any color that you see in here. So let's just say aqua, for example. Save this, and if you look carefully, only the elements within this div are affected, but this one is not, untouched. So if I close that, I can also give a style to this, and this is CSS. Don't worry too much about this. So here maybe you want to give a border, for example. So here you want to say maybe 1 pixel solid, and then maybe, I don't know, blue violet. Save this and then preview, and you can see that this division in here has a border, this one doesn't, and the background is just filled. This is pretty much the gist of divs, and they are very, very important because obviously it helps us to structure the page into sections, headers, footers, sidebars, and yeah, so you'll use them quite a lot, to be honest, and it's quite simple. The concept is just a way for you to group elements together. All right, so I'm going to leave it here. If you have any questions on divs, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. In this section, let's learn about HTML forms, which is a fundamental tool for user interaction on websites. Forms are crucial in terms of collecting diverse data from simple text, images, or files. It's one that you see in every single website. Here's an example. So you most likely seen a form that looks like this, where you have username, password, and then sign in. So this is done by using an HTML form. So the basic structure involves enclosing the form elements within the form tag in here. And for example, in the login form example that you saw before, so we have name and email in here, or password. So we have the input tags within the form container. And here's the actual example. So you can see that we have a form, and then within the form we have two inputs. So you can see here is a text input, the username, and then we specify the ID, username, and then this is the password. So you can see that there's different types. And then we name this as password as well as the ID password. And then we have a button in here. So type submit, and you've learned about buttons. And this basically says that whenever you click on this button, take the information that you have here and then send it somewhere. So I'll show you this in a second as well. With forms, we have a bunch of types. So here you can see text for single line text, email, validates and accepts email addresses, password, number, checkbox, radio, dates, files, submit, reset, and I think there's a few others, but these are the most common ones. The same way that you've learned tags, attributes, we have form attributes in here. The action attribute determines the destination where the form data is sent. We have the method, specifies the HTTP type, get or post. We have name attribute, which assigns unique identifier to the form for referencing purposes. And then we have required attribute. So this mandates the completion of specific fields, ensuring essential data is captured before submission. So this is the gist. Next, let me go ahead and show you how to build this simple HTML form. All right, let's go ahead and create a form that allows a user to log in. So in here, inside of the body tag, what I'm going to do is simply to create a div. And inside of this div, it's not needed, but I just feel like let's just use whatever we've learned from previous sections and start to group things, because maybe you might have two forms, for example, and you can group things together. Within this div, you might have another div, which is for the form, and maybe another one, which is for, I don't know, FAQs, for example. So in here, let's just create a form, and I'm going to say H1, and I'm going to say form, or let's just say login, for example. And what we need is to have the form. So here, remember, we said that we need the form. So in here, the form, and this has to be indented like so. So we have to have the form with an action, and then inside of this form in here, we can have all the inputs. Now, before I do this, let me just show you that if I type form, you can see that we have form get and then post. So this right here is the most used form type that you're going to have. So action, so the URI, and then the method is post in here. This right here is what you're going to use most of the times, not get, but post. So don't worry too much about this in here. Essentially, this tells whenever you submit a form, send the data to whatever location. So here, maybe I have http://amigoscode.com, for example, right? But obviously, currently, this URL is not existent in terms of accepting form data. Now, we need to have inputs. So here, I'm going to say input. And you can see when we say input, we have button, we have checkbox, we have color, we have file in here, we have text. So the one I want is text. So just say input, type, and then the text, and the name in here, let's just say user name, and then ID. So this is going to be also username. The type in here, so if I put my mouse in here, so the type is basically the type of the form, so allows for text input. Then we have name, so this allows us to reference this later. And then ID in here is the unique identifier. So if I put my mouse in here, defines a unique identifier which must be unique in the whole document. Its purpose is to identify the element when linking, using, scripting, or styling. This is for JavaScript and CSS, whereas this one in here, name, so this identifies each piece of data when the form is submitted. All right. Now let's create yet another input. So I'm going to say input. And one thing also that you should see that here there's no closing tags. All right. So it's just opening. And I think this should be like this. So /. So this is a self-closing tag. But actually, I think this also should work. So in here, if I say input, and now what I want. So I want a password, right? So it's basically the exact same thing. So let me just get rid of this. And let me just do this without auto-generating. So type equals to, and then password, and then name is going to be password, and then ID is going to be password. There we go. So you can see that it's quite straightforward. If I put this smaller, and we also need a button. So the button in here is going to be type and then submit, and then let's say login. And there we have it. This is our form. So if I save this and then let's preview the form, there we go. And you can see that we have login. Here I can say, for example, hello@gmail.com. And in here, I want the password. And you can see that because the type is password, I don't actually see the password. So one thing which actually, so we should do is, so for the form in here, so the first input, so the username, oh, this is a username, yeah. So we're not even saying email, we just said username. So if you want, for example, email, so we could just say email. Now, if I try to do this in here and then log in, you can see that it says please include an @ because it's validating the form. So for us in here, let's just keep this as text. And another attribute that we can pass within the input, there's many, but what we could do is we could say, right, so if I put this on a new line like this, so things are easy for you to see. There we go. So here, that's the input, just like that. So I can also say placeholder in here. And then here I can say username or enter your username. And also I can say required. This input in here is required for it to be submitted, for the form to be submitted actually. So we could do the same for the password. So let me just put this on a new line like this. And here I can say now placeholder and then enter your password. And this is also required. So required. Perfect. So if I preview this, you can see that now we have the placeholder. So enter your username. So here, if I was to, let's just say my username and then try to log in, you can see that it doesn't let me log in because I need to fill this in. So if I do, and then log in, you can see that this goes somewhere basically. But obviously this is not configured. Basically the action in here is not configured to take the form, but this is pretty much your very first HTML form in action. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next one. Let's go ahead and continue to explore forms, where in here I want to show you how to use some other input types. So let me just type form in here. And for this, I'm not going to bother with an action or anything like that. I'm just going to say form. And inside of this form, let's say that we want to have a register form, for example. So it allows users to register. So here I'm going to say h1, and then I'm going to say register, for example. And we need a few things. So we need the input type. So here we want text. So input and then text. So, oh, actually, sorry, it's going to be, yeah. So let's just say text. And this was going to be name and then name. All right. So here I'm going to show you that we can have the email as well. Let's just take this and then I'm going to change this to email. and then the name in here. So name, this is going to be email. So the exact same thing basically. So this is the identifier when the form is sent, so we can have access to the value. This is for the identifier within the HTML page, and then this is the type. So if I show you quickly, so here, not this play button, but this one in here. So you can see that we have register, and then we have the form in here. If you want to put this input type on the next line, so what we could do is we could use so in here, I could just say less sign, and then, so I don't know why this is trying to be smarter than me, but let me just say BR in here. So this is breakpoint, or is it breakpoint? Yeah, line break basically. So if I show you now, have a look. So we have the input fields, but we need more spacing. So let's just close this and we can have another BR. So BR. Obviously there are better ways of doing this. So if I show you now, have a look, we have better spacing. So there are better ways of doing this with CSS, but here let's just focus on HTML. Now let's take the two BRs that we have in here, add a space, and now we're going to have in here, let's just have a label, and I'm not going to have 4, but I'm going to say gender. And for the gender, we can have the input type. So input type as radio in here. So the name, we want to have this as male, and then the ID as male. So this should be gender actually, because it allows us to group the selections. Now we need to specify the value as well. So this is the value of whenever this is selected. So for us, it's just male. There we go. And put this smaller like this. And we can also have another label, and this will be for male. So this right here, so if I show you the ID of this one in here, which is male. So let's also add 2 BRs in there. And I think now we can just take all of this and then duplicate. This is going to be female. And then here's going to be gender. So this should be the same, but the value and the ID should be different. So this should be female, and then the value is female. All right, cool. The name in here has to be the same because it allows us to group. All right. So if I show you now, if I preview, you can see that we have gender. Oh, actually I need to save this. Oh no, it doesn't. All right. So what happened here? Oh yeah. So we have a label, but we haven't specified the value. So the label for, we said male, and then here inside female. So with capital F. All right, save this, and then let's just preview. And now you can see that we have gender, male or female, and we can choose between. All right, so this is beautiful. Next, I want to show you a checkbox. So maybe you want to say, right, so you want to subscribe to our newsletter. So let's just have BR for 2 line breaks. And then here, let's just say label for newsletter, and then subscribe to our newsletter. And then here we're going to say input, and the type is going to be check. The name is going to be subscribe. And then the same with the ID is going to be subscribe. All right. So, oh, actually, sorry, this should be for, and then ID, let's just say newsletter for all of these. Perfect. Now what we need is, so let's just take this right here, paste it here, and then obviously we need the button to submit. So button, and this is going to be submit. So submit or register. There we go. Save this. If I preview, have a look at our beautiful form. So obviously we can make things as required. So you can see here I can select and tick, choose the gender, and then basically we can have in here placeholders, right? So let's just say placeholder. This is the name we said. There we go. So name, and you can have better messaging in here. So let's just take this, paste it here, and also let's say required. So required. There we go. If I put this smaller, And then in here for the email, let's say placeholder, this is going to be email, and then also required. There we go. Then we also need require for the radio button, and we have to do only for one of them because they are grouped. For the checkbox as well, let's just say required, and I think we also missed the value. So the value for this is true. So in here, or you can say yes if you want. Cool. So let's just preview this and have a look at our beautiful form. All right, so if I try to register, you can see that things are required, and I need to submit every single thing. So here, if I now try to register, this is needed at and then gmail.com. And then if I say register, you can see that please select one of these options in here. And then you can see that I can register and it worked. Cool. So in here, let me just say close. And if you want to make this as required, so the checkbox, you can say required, feel free to do it. So just required as well. And there you have it. You can grab this form from the description of this video and play around with it. And yeah, I think it was more complicated, this one, but you can see that it's just using all of these different input types. So for now, I'll see you in the next one. Here I do have a more complex form, which I'm not going to go through everything in here, but is very straightforward. And you can see that we have checkboxes in here, and it's actually a comment. We have select text areas in here, and I think we'll also have a file. So where you can have a file picker. I think, yeah, this is the file one. It's the exact same thing, but really you just change the type in here to the appropriate one. So if you want to know the type, if I delete, for example, file, and then press Control and then spacebar, you can see that we have all different types. So button, checkbox, color in here, hidden, month, number, password, range, search, URL. I think this is for a phone number, text, week. So in here, I'm going to leave as file. And if I show you the form itself, have a look. So this is a more complicated form, but using, you know, few other selections, including a date select in here, age for numbers. You can see that it's working. If you want to choose a file, for example, you can see that you can select a file. And this is a radio button. This is a checkbox in here, select, and text area. And you can see email address, password. So one other one is actually, so let's just say in here, let's just say BR as well. I forgot this one. And we want, so we want a label. Let's just take label. And then here I'm going to say favorite color. So favorite. So can't type today. Favorite. And then color. There we go. And then we want, I don't think I want the BR in here. So, and then we want an input. So input and then color. There we go. And then I'm going to say color, ID color as well. So color. There we go. And then a label for, and then color. All right, perfect. So you can see right here. So I can select the color in here. So I'm going to leave this form in here where you can basically check it out. But let me also add in here. So I'm going to say, so command, and then I'm going to add a comment. So I'm going to say color. Perfect. So I'm going to leave this form in here so you can basically explore. But obviously you can create the form according to your needs. But I think by now you should have a pretty good understanding about HTML forms. Even though it looks ugly, because obviously you would style this with CSS. But as we said, HTML is the backbone. All right, so for now, I'll see you in the next one. In this section, I want to show you how to work with media. So how do we have a video, for example, as well as audio, and even embedding content from other websites. So if you navigate to Pexels and really just search for anything. So before we search for coding and then HTML, we have some photos. So here, just click on videos, for example, and you can see that we have a couple of videos in here. So what I want you to do is just take any video, literally any video. So let's just take, for example, this video in here. So quite nice. So I'm going to take this video and I'm going to download. So let's just download this video and save this. So within the HTML folder, I've actually organized things. So into forms, fundamentals, semantic HTML, and then we have media in here. So let's just put inside of media. So create a folder called media. And then here I'm going to say HTML. So this is the name, or coding in HTML. So just put it inside of media in here. All right. So I'm going to do that. And inside of media, I actually have the video.html for the example. All right. So I'm going to save this and then go back to Visual Studio Code. And inside, we can basically have an H1. Let's just say video here. All right. So I'll have a separate HTML for each of the examples. So here, video. And inside, if you want to, so let me just preview this at the same time. So if you want to embed a video, we can use the video tag. So just say video like this. And then we can pass the source. So you can see we have the source. So this is one way of doing it. And if I show you, so here the source is basically from the directory that I'm in. I'm going to say ./ and then coding in HTML.mp4. So you can see that we have the video. So if I put this smaller, so what I want to show you is that we can have control. So the same way that you've seen before, we can say in here width. So width, and then maybe 300. So this is the video. Now you can see that the video is not really playing basically, right? So if you want this to play, what we need to do is, let's just say controls in here. And now we have the video controls. So I can just play the video and you can see that it is working. Perfect. So if I reload this, you can see that basically the video loads, we have the controls. And if I want this to autoplay, just say auto and then play. So now if I reload, it should play automatically. Well, I was expecting it to play automatically. But maybe, I think it's because the video has to be muted. So let's just say muted and yes. So you can only autoplay if it's muted. Have a look. So now it is autoplaying. And if you want to in here, so let's just remove the controls if you don't want the controls there. But now you can see that there are no controls. Now, one thing in here is that whenever this video ends, you might want the video to loop, for example. So you can see that it has stopped, but is not looping. So you could just say in here loop, and you can see now it will loop forever. And you know, some websites, they actually use this feature within the video itself. Perfect. The other thing is maybe you want a poster. So you can have a poster, and this is basically a location of a given image that you want. So for example, let's just say here I'm going to say dot /, and I think under fundamentals we had man working .jpg. So here, if I remove autoplay, so let's just remove autoplay, you can see that this is the poster for our video. And then I want to have controls, and this is the initial image or the poster for the video. Now, if I want to play this, you can see that the video does play. All right, so in here, let me just comment this out in here, or not comment, but remove the poster. So just take literally any image that you have stored, and then you can use that. But for me, I want this to be, so let's just keep controls and maybe autoplay in here. And the last thing that I want to show you is that here we can have this as a self-closing tag like this in here. Or so if you have different file types, i.e. MP4, WebM, or OGG, what you could do is you can remove the source from here. So remove the source from here, just like this. And then you basically close the video, and inside you can say src, or source, my bad, source. And then for the source, this is where you specify the video. So src, and then paste that. And now I can have multiple sources. So maybe .webm, and we actually have to say type in here, and then this is mp4, and we also have type in here, and this is video /web m. So actually this also, so this guy right here is video /, and then if I put this smaller, so you can see that this is it. And then you could have the default, which is like your browser does not support, for example, just like that, the video. All right, so this, I forgot MP4 here. All right, so you can see that this is pretty much how you could have different file types for the exact same video. So obviously in here, if I remove this, so it's not going to work because I don't have this file type in here, but if I did, then it would work. But there you have it. So this is how you work with videos. Cool. So for now, I'll see you on the next one. All right. Now let me show you how to get up and running with audio, which is almost the same thing as video. So in here, I'm within Pixabay, and I'll leave a link where you can search any audio that you like, really. But if I play this, you can see that this is some nice motivational classical music. So let's just take this and download, and I'm going to download, so let's just say motivation and then audio, for example. There we go. And let's go back to Visual Studio Code, and in here it's quite simple. So the way we do it is say audio, and is going to be the same thing. So here, if you have just one audio, so just one type, you could basically use a self-closing tag like this, and then you say dot / and then the audio in here, so motivational -audio.mp3. All right, so here, if I show you the preview, so you can see that I was expecting to see the audio in here, but we don't have anything. All right, so I think it's because we need the controls. So let's just say controls, and fair enough. Whoops. So sorry, this is SRC and then controls. So you can see that we have controls and then SRC. So very similar to the way that we've done with the, so in here with the video. So it's going to be the exact same thing. So if I can get this right, so we have controls, then maybe you want this to, in here, autoplay, for example. You just say autoplay. Yeah, autoplay. Let's see. There we go. It works. And then I can stop this. And I think it's going to be the exact same reason. So here, this has to be muted for it to autoplay, actually. So, and there's other ways that you can basically have a button, and then when you click on it, you can basically autoplay, maybe like a hidden button. But this is pretty much it. So let me just remove the muted here. And what else can we use? So if I press Control Enter, so in here, we can also say loop, for example. There we go. So this will loop. And I think this is pretty much it. So there's other ones that you should work, that you can use, but this is pretty much the gist. If you have different file types for the exact same audio, same way that we've done before, so you can remove that, and then here this is going to be audio, like so, and then you have source, so exact same thing in here. So, oh, actually, sorry, source is self-closing in here, and this should be audio, just like this. And then in here you say SRC, and then, oops, the exact same thing actually. So paste that, and then here you say type, and then the type is audio /MP3, just like this. So if you have, I don't know, a different file format, you could just have them in here, and then here you can say type, and the type in here is going to be audio / and then MPEG, like so. So just like this. And the reason why you want to use different sources in here, the same for videos, is that different browsers support different audio formats. So to make sure everyone can play your audio, you can provide multiple formats, and then the browser automatically picks the first format it supports. So you don't choose the format manually. All right, so this is just for different browsers. And to be honest, this is the gist. So this is pretty much how you work with audio. So here I can play this. You can see that it still works. I can download, playback speed, and whatnot. All right, this is all for now. I'll see you in the next one. In this video, I want to talk to you about iframes, which stands for inline frame, and it's used to embed another web page or document inside of your current page. You can embed websites, you can embed YouTube videos, Google Maps, PDFs, and any other HTML files. It's like opening a little window inside of your page. So say that we go to my YouTube channel and I've just published a video on Spring Boot roadmap. Say that we want to embed this video in here within any web page. So what we can do is, if you go on YouTube, you can go and you can click on share, and then in here you can see that you have different ways of sharing this. But one is embed. Click on embed, and this will give you an iframe in here. So literally, so you can see that you can have a few toggles and whatnot, but just click on copy and then go back to VS Code. And in here, what we're going to do is paste. Now the iframe is quite easy, to be honest. It's just using the iframe tag in here, and then you can pass the width, the height, and then this is the source. So this is where the content is coming from. We can specify the title, whether it has a border, allow, and then autoplay, clipboard right, and all of these other things in here, including full screen. So if I save this and let's preview this, and you can see that we have the video, and if I want to, I can play this video. All right, so this is YouTube video. Now, obviously, usually you just take the iframe. So most providers, they'll just give you the iframe, and then you can export that and then use it within your HTML page. So I've got an example here of a Google Map iframe. So here, let me just paste this code, and you can grab this from the description of this video. So here is an example with Google Map. So let me just put this like this, and here let me just say YouTube, or actually iframe, and then here I'm gonna say H2 YouTube, and then let's have in here H2 and then Google Maps. All right, so if I preview this, you can see that we have the YouTube video in here, but also we have the Google Map, and this is interactive. So this is in France, the Eiffel Tower, and you can see that we have the controls. I can navigate around, but you can see how we are able to embed other piece of content into our web page. So we didn't write none of this, and we're just reusing code, and we are just embedding other pieces of content within our web page. Cool. This is pretty much iframes in action. Very straightforward, and you can go through some of these other attributes in here and learn more about them, but you can see that they're quite straightforward. But I'm gonna leave it here. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. In this section, let's talk about semantic HTML, which involves using specific HTML elements that directly describe the meaning and purpose of their content rather than just its appearance. So if you want to, for example, create a website, previously we would use a bunch of div tags. So you've seen that a div is a tag that allows us to group certain elements together. So maybe this would be the header in here, then we have the hero section maybe, and then we have the side content, the main content, and then the footer itself in here. So this is using a bunch of div tags. Now, semantic HTML in here involves using specific HTML elements that directly describe the meaning and purpose. So instead of using divs, it goes like this. So we have specific tags that describe the meaning. So we have a tag for header, another one for nav, another one for section, another one for aside, and another one for footer, and a bunch more. Now, the beauty with this is that it improves accessibility as well as SEO. So this one is very important to improve your search rankings as well as readability. So there's a huge gain when you use semantic tags. Now, obviously, there are a bunch of these tags. So header defines the header section, nav for navigation links, main for the main content, section for grouping within a document, article, this for independent piece of content, aside, footer, figure contains self-contained content such as images, diagrams, fig caption, time as well. And I think there's a few others, but these are the most important ones. All right, let me go ahead and demonstrate this to you, how it works. In here, I do have this HTML page in here that contains a bunch of divs. So one for the header, another one for the nav, another one for the main content with a hero, with services, and then a footer. So quite simple. And if I show you this, you can see that this is a very simple website. So obviously it doesn't look beautiful, but that's because we're not even using CSS. But this is a simple website. Now you can see, and actually, sorry, you can also grab this entire HTML from under the description of this video so that you can follow along. So in here, what we want to do is we want to switch from using div tags to semantic HTML. So the way to do it is, instead of saying div in here, so let's just start from the very first div, which is the header. In here, we just say header. So let's just say header, and you can see that this reads better. So header in here, and by just doing this, we are improving accessibility as well as SEO for our website. Also in here, we have nav. So this is for the navigation. So here we could just remove this and we can say nav. All right, let's move on to the next one. So in here, you can see that the URLs and everything stays the same, but we have the main content. So in here, just remove this and say main. Now, when you do this, actually, it replaces the bottom as well. All right, cool. Then we have the hero section in here. So for the hero section, we could just use header as well. So this is the header for the content within the main content. And we have services. So for the services, instead of a div, we could say section. So this is a section. Cool. And then we have articles. So this is our services. And if you want to, you can also change, you can also add this in here as a header for this section. So you could say in here, header like this, and then put this inside if you want to. So also for articles in here, so section, and in here we have article. So here, this will be an article, and this also will be an article. So there we go. So article. Cool. Now, obviously, you can still use divs within these sections, but whatever makes sense, such as the top level container, is best to use semantic HTML. So maybe inside of this article, for example, if you want to group this in here, you can group with a div. So there is nothing wrong with it. You could just group it like that, because maybe within each article, it's more complex and you want to have a better structure. So you can definitely use divs along with all of these other semantic HTML tags. Perfect. Now let's go to the footer. So for the footer in here, so this will be what? You guessed it right, footer. And there you have it. So in here, just put whatever year that you want for your copyright. But now if I preview this website, you can see that it still look the exact same thing, but we have improved the structure and mainly accessibility as well as SEO for our website. So search engine optimization. Cool. This is pretty much for this section. If you have any questions on semantic HTML, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I will see you on the next one. Hopefully you had fun learning HTML. And as I said, if you want to get the certificate for this course, go ahead and enroll on our brand new website. I look forward to see you there. And if you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to comment down below. This is pretty much all. Don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, and I'll see you on the next one.